Hello, I'm your host AJ, and this is Misteyre Creations, where we talk about cultures, history, science, and folklore. Today's episode is a mix of it all. I'm speaking with Kerr Cuhulain, a former police officer, astronomer, and pagan. We talk about the challenges he faced being openly pagan and a police officer. Much of his work helped to correct misconceptions about pagans in law enforcement and fight against satanic panic. We also talk about his astronomical work and magical practice. This is an episode we need people to think about. Satanic panic is a fear-based campaign designed to subjugate and single out a community based on their religious beliefs. We need to stand against this harmful behaviour and call it out when we see it, like Kerr Cuhulain did. His work to educate people is important, and we appreciate all of his service to our community and the world. Please enjoy. Welcome to the show, Kerr Cuhulain. Nice to have you on. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing good.
Good. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Oh, well, I've been on this path for 54 years now, so I guess I could call myself a Wiccan elder. And I came, became public about my beliefs and discovered about 2 weeks in that I was the first pagan cop to do so. So I spent the next 25 years doing a lot of anti-defamation work and education, mostly for the law enforcement, first responder, corrections community, but traveling all over North America to deal with something that started about the time that I became public, which was the Satanic Panic. And so most recently, I've been pulled out of retirement along with a couple of other experts in the field, and people are doing documentaries about that. Sean Holler just created one, and I'm just waiting for it to show up on CBC. He had it at a film festival last couple of weeks ago in Spain. So it's called Satan Wants You. But it was a choice in the beginning. Do I want to get litigious or do I want to educate people? And I decided I want to educate people. So, I'm a pagan author. I was in law enforcement for 36 years, both in on the street and in dispatch, and then I retired and hit the ground running in the astronomy world, which is something I had a telescope when I was 10 years old. So I've been doing this for some time. So I've just recently finished the term as president of the national president of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, and I've got an observatory up here on the coast that I use to introduce people to the sky. So that's kind of a crash course. I think I've got 27 books out there now in 4 languages, various different topics.
Excellent. If you like, can you send me a list of the books and I'll put that in the notes for us?
Sure.
How is your spiritual practice impacted by your life and work?
Well, one of the things I discovered right at the beginning was people really didn't understand me being a cop and Wiccan, which was disappointing. It was about 6 months into me being associated with the Witches League for Public Awareness before they realized I really was a cop. I wasn't some agent provocateur trying to infiltrate their organization. Every single time I've done a public event, some course, some lecture for police agencies or corrections anywhere in North America, without exception, at least one person would come up at the end and say, okay, if you can do it, I can do it. I'm pagan too. So, there's a lots of us out there, but
Yeah.
people couldn't understand, what is this warrior thing? Isn't that about fighting? And it's not. It's not about using these. It's about using this. It's not about being aggressive. It's about being assertive. It's about being effective. So a lot of what I've written and a lot of the things that I've been involved in the Wiccan community, the pagan community, is related to that warrior archetype, and it's not that that's the only one or the best one. It's one that is accessible to everybody, just like the healer and the lover and the ruler are. But
Yeah.
you you can learn how to use it effectively when you need it. And because of my profession, I was in it more often than not. And the same is true of a lot of other people who are pagans in the military or in other first responder professions. But people then started to figure out that there was a place there, for us. And so I think that basically was the other thing I was mainly responsible for, was making people familiar with it, people work with it. And the other thing is, while I really enjoy dressing up and doing the ceremonial stuff, and a lot of the stuff I've done over the years and enjoyed has been that sort of thing. When it comes down to magic, because I come from a martial arts background, it is very, very simple. It's energy follows intent.
Yeah.
You don't need circles, you don't need rituals, you don't need a whole lot of tools and implements. All you need is this.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that I've written about is related to how to use energy effectively, and uh, everybody can do it. It's just a matter of figuring out how it works.
Yeah. I like that because I come from a martial art background as well. I started training
Mm.
18 months old, and from there it went on. It's informed my entire
Sheep
life.
follows Lee.
Yeah. Yeah. And so,
Yeah, it's just, if you can focus your intent, and you can, a lot of it has to do with being able to um, understand how things are flowing around you. I've had lots of people over the years come to me and say, I would like to protect myself. I want to put up wards and shields and all that stuff. And I went, no, you don't. You need to learn how to swim. You need to learn how to figure out what's around you
yeah.
and move through it. This touches me, this doesn't. It's that simple, and
Yeah.
you don't normally need any of that warding stuff. When we do um, rituals, circles within the offices of we're paladins, which is something I founded back in 2007. We're warriors. We don't put up shields and walls. We cast a circle, just an area to make it sacred, and we do stuff. And if someone is stupid enough to throw something at us, well, everyone's going to stop looking in the direction and go, really? All right, we're going to deal with that. I mean, if they
Yeah.
push, you pull. If they pull, you push. Basic martial arts. So,
Yeah.
not that happens very often. It's pretty rare, but like, that's the way you deal with things. You don't have to. What people very often do is they put up wards that so effectively block things off. They block off all kinds of things that they should be in contact with, and they
Yeah.
don't get the energy that's surrounding them that they need, and they make themselves sick. And if wonder, why do I feel like this? Because you've shut yourself off from all the healing stuff. Open it up, let it through. Just don't let the stuff you don't want touch you.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. Um, in dealing with law enforcement, how does that play a part? Oh.
Well, you must realize that when I joined the Vancouver Police Department, it was 1,200 members, and 3 of them were female, were useful for searching female prisoners, and the rest were all white males, except for one token black male. And when I left, it was about 60%, 16% female, 14% ethnicity other than Caucasian. And there was a whole bunch of different religions that were represented there all along, but just were in the background because they didn't feel safe coming out. And every single time I did something in front of the press to deal with the minority that I'm connected to, all of the officers in the other minorities said, yeah, good for you. Yeah, me too. Because so it's about teaching people that different is not dangerous. I've went on a trip down in '94 to Little Rock and Jonesboro and Memphis because the Sean Sellers murder it happened down there. And he was supposed to be a Satanist and a witch, and he was a teenager and he was screwed up. And the Unitarian Church wanted me to come down and talk to people in the public to make them feel a lot more comfortable about things. They didn't want some sort of backlash. And I did the first public circle in Little Rock, And at the end of it, we had 125 people there. They were saying, so how do we connect with the police? I say, well, you talk to these two guys that are standing next to me because they're cops. And then Jonesboro, I had the whole Jonesboro Police Department between me and a crowd, because there, Terry Riley and the Aquarian Tavern and his church there had, there was a couple of members who tried to open a bookstore in Jonesboro, which is kind of a dumb place to open it, because I don't know that there's many people there you'd sell books to, because it's kind of locally known as Fort God.
Yeah.
But they tried, and then the landlord found out who they were and closed it, and they had a little protest, about 30 people with signs, and about 700 Christians were fundamentalist Christians bussed in by Oral Roberts to protest. And so they were concerned something was going to happen there. And this is where you've got a small town where everyone's trying to be the same.
Yeah.
3 hours later, I'm in West Memphis at the University of Memphis at the Faculty of Psychology with 300 people, and it's fine, because all kinds of diversity in the crowd.
Yeah.
People are used to different. So part of what I've figured out over the years is, the larger the community, the more diverse it is, the less problems you're likely to have. It's going to be an easier thing to communicate with people. If you're in a very small place where everyone's trying to pretend that they're all the same, even though they're not, that's where you're going to find it's a little
hard.
more difficult. But it's about standing up in front of people and say, okay, they've been telling you all these stories about, witches, where I am. I had, I went and spoke to the Northwest Criminal Intelligence Association. This is 95. And right at the end of the Satanic panic. And when I got there, the person who had invited me to do this, who was a very devout Pentecostal, but a very good friend and a good cop, and he was kind of worried, because look at the program here. It says you're an expert in Satanism. I said, well, I kind of am. And all kinds of other things as well. I know what it is, because I've talked to Anton LaVey and, Michael Aquino and all these people, because they're having problems too, even though they're not doing anything. But, we'll be okay. So we go in there, 300 people in this auditorium, and there's this big screen that say, hi, I'm Detective Charles Evans, Vancouver Police Department. And this is what I am. Big word flashes up on the screen, says witch. And you could hear, the silence in the room, the pin drop, and a bunch of chairs sliding back. And, at the end of the thing, I was mobbed by people saying, yeah, good for you. Glad to hear that, somebody's, because I'm tired of hearing it from. And there was a couple of people sitting in the front row. One of them was like this for the whole 3 hours. And when he asked the question, he came down about this part, and he went, that's the fear.
Yeah.
That's involved. So it's about, letting people know that you are not weird. I went to Blessed Be and Merry Meet in BC back in 2000, which is this was a Beltway pagan community, a lot of military people, and we had a Friday full moon ceremony down by the Jefferson Memorial. And it didn't even occur to them when they scheduled it, because it's the full moon, right? So we're going to do it on a full moon. It's Friday the 13th. So the press shows up, and when they've given everybody these little blue glow sticks, and they said to the press, the people with the blue glow sticks are fine in front of a camera. They're open. You can film them. And I was dressed in a suit and a tie with a pentagram on it, if you look closely, and dark glasses. It looked like a Secret Service agent. And they running onto the site, the press, to the people who are all dressed in the medieval and the ceremonial stuff. And then they went to the people who are just, casually dressed with the t-shirts with maybe a pentagram or something. And then finally they noticed me standing there, and they came over and said, who are you? They were looking for that sort of stuff. Very first time I ever spoke to someone in the press is someone came knocking at my door in White Rock, and it was from BCTV and Mike McCardle.
Yeah.
And I opened the door, and the microphone is in my face, and he says, do something weird. And I went, no weird here. Started to close the door, and he said, whoa, wait a minute. And said, no, seriously, there's nothing weird. Come here. There's nothing weird here. This is the whole point. This is not scary, dangerous, different. I mean, get used to it. So that's while I like to see the people getting dressed up and having fun, I also very much like the post that I've seen recently saying this is what a witch looks like 2023, and it's just a picture of them just every day. Here I am, So because that's really, I mean, it's not something special that we do once in a while. This is who I am.
Yeah,
This is what we are. So it's something that is just
I think
um
yeah, I think they don't get it because they assume because you're in a community that is technically considered fringe, they think that you're going to be weird or the outcast, and you're really not. You're just a normal person, and they don't get that normal people have different beliefs than the masses.
it's I've been involved in interfaith for quite some time, and I was actually a chaplain at a Catholic hospital. I got the tag right here still. And I'm used to working with people from other faiths. And it's just if you took 10 people and put them in the field and they all witness the same thing, one sees Jesus, one sees Mary, one sees Gaia, one sees Urzuli, one sees a UFO, and at least one person's going, what are you all looking at? It's we're all looking at the same thing,
Yeah,
but we come from different social, educational, and you know, ba- backgrounds, and that means we perceive it slightly differently. But it's the same thing. One of the Anglican ministers that I used to work with, George, he said, "You know what I like about this? Your perspective illuminates mine." Yeah, I mean,
it
so
yeah, in creating community like that, in working with interfaith, it gives you the ability to kind of inform your own beliefs as much as it does give them education into what you believe and how you go about it, which
yeah,
is great.
and you figure out you're not as different as you thought you were at first. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Well, Christianity, a lot of what is in Christianity came from pagan times. It was
mhm.
just repackaged as Christianity,
It's not
at least some to some
Christianity that I
extent.
have a problem with. It's churchianity. It's where people turn it into a business and use it to make money. That's
That's yeah,
that's where
Bible
I know lots of people who are really good um, Christians. I did, went down to New Orleans with my wife with one of the police detectives that I used to do anti-defamation work, and he was a Baptist minister. We did Samhain in New Orleans. It was great.
awesome.
So I mean, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with people who are interested. This was the basis of the Satanic Panic. It was people who wanted influence, money, and power in some combination, and they were abusing, using people's fears to do that. So this is get rid of the fear, and you want to get somebody who is anti-Semitic to straighten out, put him in front of a rabbi and get him talking, get them to understand that the person in front of them is not who they thought.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
certainly. Um, working with different people and giving all the different perspectives, and it that's the best way to educate people is actually get them. Well, in my case, I work in the food industry. Getting people at the supper table is one of the best ways to get them communicating. And
Very definitely.
so having community get-togethers like a Samhain ritual or like a church lunch or anything like that, it you get people of different faiths together and they start to say, okay, you're not so weird.
Yeah, I mean, there was a Day of the Dead parade for Halloween here in Seashell the other day, where this is a very Central Latin American kind of a thing.
Mm,
But we had a whole bunch of really good quality musicians, and a whole lot of people showed up we painted our faces and dressed the part, and we had a parade. People came in costume, and we went, down to a place where we then had a concert, and there was a puppet show, and then there was the fire dancers, and people came and just enjoyed it. They probably don't to this day understand exactly what it was that we're seeing, but they could see that it was fun and it wasn't anything to be concerned about. And so you
True.
do that, you put it out there in the public, you make it open so that people can see there's nothing being hidden here.
They identify.
Hmm.
Um, being pagan, how did that affect your investigative process in police work?
I teach people to pay attention to their intuition, and you will find an awful lot of cops who would describe this as a gut feeling, or there's all kinds of different terms for it, but they'd rather, you know, stab themselves and tell you that it's magic. So, like, okay, whatever. But I mean, I took it very seriously and paid attention to it very intently, and then as a result, got results that nobody expected. And so they sort of stood back and said, okay, when you walk the beat, within 2 weeks, the street people will have given you a name, and it
Yeah.
will be a reflection of how they view you on the street, and you have no say in the matter. And I'm the wizard
There was-
in 2 weeks. So um, it was something that sort of made some people uncomfortable because they couldn't understand it, and they weren't quite comfortable trying to do it themselves. But I mean, some of them that went, yes, okay, all right, I guess you're doing the same thing I am, you just have a different name for it. All right.
Yeah.
It's you when you teach your recruit that you're training, when you go down the street, don't look and say, gee, what was that? Gee, I think that was something. Hey, wait a minute, that 2 blocks back, too late. You look and you go, stop.
Yeah.
And we slam on the brakes and we figure out, what is that? Let's and if it's nothing, it's nothing. But if you've just acted on something and it turns out to be what you thought it was, well, here we go. This is what we're here for. So
Yeah.
it's I have a test that I do that I've trotted all over the world with me in various different educational situations, where I prove to people that they have the ability to do, you know the psychic stuff, and people who do not think that they have it, no one's ever failed it. It's ridiculously simple. So it's just a matter of getting people used to the idea that they have a sixth sense. Just pay attention to it.
Yeah. It for me, intuition comes into when I'm feeding people, figuring out what they're gonna mesh with, what
Hmm.
what I think
Hmm.
they'll like, and a lot of that is just looking at them, getting the feel and the gut feeling.
Hmm.
Uh, but I could see that being a very useful tool because if your gut tells you something, most often it's going to be true.
Oh yeah. I um on dispatch, which I did for quite a number of years, and there was a suspect that was fleeing on foot, and a whole lot of people were in cars heading generally east, trying to catch up with him. And the dog was tracking, and the wagon driver said, "Where do you want me?" And I said, "I want you there." And he says, "That's not the direction they're going." And I went, "I want you there." And I mean, they knew me well enough to go, okay, he's doing it again. And then suddenly the dog's tracking towards the wagon. He's going, okay. And they get into this yard, and the dog's going crazy. And the dog handler is saying, I've got scent, but I can't figure out, I can't find this guy. He's nowhere in the yard." And I went, "Look up." And there was a tree house. And he got into the tree house, and there was nothing. And he said, "It's nothing here either." And I went, "Keep going." He was on the roof.
You
And and I'm miles away. And they're going, "How do you do that?" And I went, "I just pay attention.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Pay attention. Yeah. It
So
yeah.
I mean, I have experienced, I have witnessed all kinds of people in that profession doing that. to one level or another for years, but not being willing often to admit to it because they'll
It's
think I'm weird. No,
weird.
I
Yep.
won't. I think you're doing great. So,
I love that you encourage that, because a lot of us, like myself, for a lot of years, I didn't think my abilities were psychic. And then I was talking to Michelle Belanger, and she said, "You know, you're
mm,
very psychic." And I was like, "Wow, okay." Then I guess I
she's
have to
good.
admit to it. Yeah,
She's good.
she's great. Um,
She's good. I ran into her at an event years ago where I showed up and he said, "Have you got a minute with the press is here?" And they sat me down next to her and a bunch of other people I'd never met before, and they started asking questions. And we've been friends ever since. So,
Wonderful. Yeah. She is a great person.
hmm, good
Uh,
teacher.
yes, she is. I'm part of her Discord.
Cool.
So, um, how has your work impacted the pagan community and the community at large?
Well, I already mentioned the idea of getting people used to the archetype, but and the idea that you can do more than you think you can with just yourself, and not you don't need all kinds of tools. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a wand. It's an extension of your ability. It's a focusing tool. But you
Mhm.
know, if I put the wand on the ground, it's a stick. I
Mhm.
don't care what you made it out of or what colors it is or what you've engraved it with. It's a stick. You're the source of the power.
Yep.
You want a magic wand? There's a wand.
Yep.
You know, you're a martial artist. You know exactly what it was
Yep.
doing there. So you
Yep.
know it's sword hand. So like it's getting people used to the idea that it's not it. You don't need as many trappings and the paraphernalia and stuff. I'm not trying to discourage people from doing ritual because that has all kinds of other vital purposes. It's an initiatory thing, you know.
Yep.
It has all kinds of um, useful things. But if all you're talking about is magic, don't need it. Can
True.
do it with
Do it.
ritual, sure, but you know, like just work with what you've got. And a lot of the Asian stuff, qigong and various different disciplines, they're about they definitely understand there's energy,
Yeah.
we're moving it, let's learn how to do this. So you put the two together. That I think is one of the things that helped is introduce a lot of people in the community to that idea that they can do that, and in the process improve their ability to
So,
accomplish things.
do you find that martial arts acted as a bridge between paganism and
I think,
police
yeah,
force?
I think it did. If you're talking about a traditional school that um, treats it as a discipline and a path to learning about yourself, self mastery. Master this, everything else takes care of itself. There is just as many people out there now who want to open a can of whoop ass and win awards and you know wail on one another, and that isn't it.
Yeah.
That if you are into that traditional stuff, it makes you less aggressive
Yeah.
because you don't need it.
Yeah. You don't.
You just don't. Like standing on the street, people will take one look at you and then will go, "Oh, I don't want to go there," because they can tell that you're
Yeah.
comfortable standing there and you're ready to, defend yourself. It's just um, that my definition of a warrior is a person who does a fearless inventory of themselves and then takes all of that and uses it to take charge of their life.
Yeah.
It's there's no such thing as weaknesses and faults, except if you misuse something, um, use something in the wrong context, it could be a problem. You can be stubborn and that can get you in trouble, but it can also get you over the finish line ahead of everybody else. So, I mean, it's
True.
learning when to use stuff and how to use stuff, and basically view yourself as powerful. It's amazing how many people give you the Wiccan read, and it harm none, do what thou wilt, and they don't include themselves in that.
Yeah.
For starters, harm
Yeah.
none. I mean, that includes you.
Yeah.
And don't take the other part seriously. Do what thou wilt. Reach for the stars. Carpe diem. Be
Yeah.
glorious. Go for it. Take responsibility for it,
Yeah.
because that's the way we are. That's how we differ from some of these other faiths. But go
Yeah.
for it. Do it.
True.
Reach out and grab it.
Yeah.
Grab
I,
the tiller and steer.
yeah.
you know.
My dad used to say, reach for the stars, and if you fall somewhere between, at least you can be comfortable with what you did. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're both martial artists. You understand it's about getting up off the mat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, that
Yeah. Well.
and one of the things that I've seen some of the members of my order get snarled up in early days is, okay, we've got the black belt. We've gone and we've got we've learned how to do all this stuff. The battles are over. No, they're not.
No.
You walk into the dojo and put on the black belt, you're announcing to everyone, try me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
telling the world, I am now capable of standing here. I am now prepared to deal with stuff. I am now confident dealing with this stuff. It doesn't mean there's nothing to deal with anymore. It means I know I can deal with it.
Yeah.
You know.
When I was 16, I got my first degree, and I was the youngest in the style at that point because usually
Mhm.
they you have to be 19 or older to get it.
Very
But
good.
but I trained since I was 18 months old, so it was much longer than the average person. So it was 3 to 5 years you get your black belt. I learned early on that black belt means nothing more than a belt. It basically when you get to black belt, that's your initiatory experience is getting to that point, and then the real learning begins after. And so in
Yeah,
which
we we have something in order balance which corresponds with reaching with that level. It's called the battle of proof, and basically what it is, it's just you can do anything at all, verbal, dance, whatever you like, to demonstrate your understanding of your mastery. And it's really interesting to see what people come up with. And they're all different and they're all amazing and they all basically revolve around the ideas. I've now discovered a path. Now watch me follow it. This is
Mhm.
the direction I'm going.
I think that's the individuality in. I'm part of the pagan diaspora, anyways. Um, my tradition is varied. I came from a Celtic background, but learning about my family history, I have Native, I have Canadian heritage, and that's all intermixed, and so I've expanded on that, and now I would say I'm eclectic because that's
If if you stop 10 people in a row coming out of any religious gathering of any sort, including any of our own, and ask them to define their faith, you will get 10 different answers every single time.
yeah,
Because it's just an individual path. We share stuff together, we share titles and stuff, but that's the actual truth of it. It is an individual path that's being able to function in the world on your own with your people there to support you, and together you form something that's even greater and more powerful if you need it. But it's Bruce Lee, when he wrote Tao Jeet Kune Do, it's all about, I go to a dojo, a school, or whatever, and I can knock myself for the rest of my life out trying to do something my body isn't designed to do, or I can take all the things that work for me and go, thank you so much. Go to the next school and start studying their stuff and find all the things that work for you, and then say thank you, and you go to the next one, and soon you have a style which is you and
yeah,
nobody else. And that's good. It doesn't have to be the same as everybody else. If it works for you, we're That's the warrior thing I just talked about. So,
Yeah.
that's um, something I try to encourage people in the pagan community to understand. You don't have to do some apostolic succession and be exactly the same as the person in front of you. That what you need is a mentor that's going to help you find yourself and be yourself. That's what you need.
That that's where in the last few years my expansion of learning has become exponential,
Mm.
because I accepted that I don't have to emulate someone else. I can just do what I want and what I feel. That goes back to the gut feeling again. What I feel is the best. That's what I go with. And if it doesn't resonate, I'll try it 3 more times. If it still doesn't resonate, I throw it away. And
Well, this is the reason for a journal.
yeah,
Okay, it isn't so I can record everything that the person before me did. So this is how it will always work. This is where I record what works and what doesn't. That doesn't mean that it doesn't ever work. It may mean that I have not yet developed all the skills I need to make it work yet.
yeah,
But this is where I was at this time, and it didn't work for me at that time. We can revisit this later. That's what it is. It's a way of keeping track of things as you learn and develop stuff. I there are a lot of things I have initiation. The very first one I recorded in Theban, it's just a work of art. It's beautiful and turquoise ink. Can't read a word of it. Then I did it in English. So now I can read it, but I mean, a lot of the stuff in there doesn't work. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't or it's wrong. It just means that's somebody else's thing. It works for them.
yeah.
I need to know what works for me.
It's true. It's true. Um, what would you suggest to someone starting out in the practice to build their practice?
You know, when we first put all the information on the Order of Paladins out there, I had a whole bunch of elders who shall remain nameless um, come running out of the woodwork to say, "You're giving away all your power. You're telling them everything." And they went, "Yeah, I'm handing them a textbook. Just because you read the textbook doesn't mean you've mastered it. There's no secrets here. I hate these people go, but this is the third degree mystery. Oh, come on. Like if you're going to try something and I don't think you've got the ability to do it, that's what I'm going to tell you. I said, you know what? You need a little more work here before that's going to work for you, but go for it. Because I mean, like I said, this is about picking yourself up off the mat, right? Um, but this is about you figuring out how to do things, and it's about creating situations that allow people to see that it works. That one of the things that we do, we have um, some drills that we do with sticks, the Filipino artists,
Yeah.
so that stuff, just to stir up chi. Okay. I mean,
Okay.
they have a martial application, but we're just getting
It's yeah.
chi stir up, or we do the quarterstaff, show you how to spin this thing around.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I go, okay, we're going to blindfold you all, and I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to have someone here making noise so you can't hear me walking away and figure out where I've gone. And then they're going to say, okay, as soon as I say go, I want you to point that thing at where you think he is with his energy. And I'm stirring chi just the way they were,
Hmm.
just the way I was teaching them. And every single time, at least 80% of them will turn and face right at me. And the other 20% will face directly away. And it's not because they've failed, it's because they've got the current, they're just pointing the wrong way. They don't understand they're going downstream rather than upstream, right?
Yep.
And as soon as you get them to understand that's what they've done, every single time it's boom,
Boom.
boom. You know, I did this at in Albuquerque, and we were just doing empty hand stuff in this case with a bunch of people I'd never met before, and I said, okay, let's go. And I was using one of my other nights to generate the energy, and one of them came right around and boom, just if we first person on target, bang. And they said, "You're a martial artist." And he goes, "Yes." I mean, because you're used to that.
Used
That's
to it.
what you're doing. You're trying to figure out, where is this energy going? Where am I going to direct it? And if you can learn to do that with your pagan stuff, with your magic, you're going to see a big difference, because that's what it is.
Yeah. Any reading that you would suggest to them?
Oh, there's all kinds of great books out there. Misha Belinchay's got good books. We were talking about her a moment ago. Amber Kay, True
Mm,
Magic. Start with that. You know, um, read everything. It's it you there something that works for me may be in that book, and something that works for you may be in another book. I've got books, you can read them,
yeah.
where I'm trying to direct you in the right direction, but look at the bibliography. It'll take you places as well. I mean, it's try it. Go out there, experiment. Let yourself go. Dance like no one's watching. And just do it, because that's where you're going to start to feel it. It's a matter of getting familiar with how it feels to you. If I get you to stand there with your feet shoulder width apart and just relax, and then shake your hands, your shoulders, and shudder all the way down to your feet. Do that 3 times. You're going to feel something in your hands.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, yeah, and you know this, you're a martial artist, you felt it. But it's different for everybody. I can't describe what it's going to be for you, because it might be pins and needles, it might be hot, it might be cold. Whatever it is, that's you. Now you know what it feels like for you. Now let's work with it. Let's build up from there. Let's show you what it's going to feel like for you. Because maybe, like some people are clairvoyant, some are clairaudient. I'm clairsentient. I don't see an image or oh look, I've had a vision of what's going to happen. I just go there and
Yeah.
trust myself. That it's hard to do, because you don't know why
Yeah.
in the beginning you're doing this, but once you get used to it, um,
Stop second
it's
guessing
very
yourself.
effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very effective. Like gang crime unit. I used to be a member of the gang. Once fun, a member of the gang crime unit for the Vancouver Police, and they were searching this house for a $500,000 worth of jewelry, and they'd been in there for about 2 hours, and they'd found nothing. And I was working in the office and came out to see how they were doing, and they were all coming out looking hand dogs, saying, "It's not there." And I went, "Yeah, it is." And they went, "Yeah, yeah." And I came out 5 minutes later with the box. How do you do that? I don't know.
It's there. It's
Knew
there.
it was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so it's a matter of trusting your abilities,
Hmm.
having confidence
Yeah.
as much as anything. And the only way you can get that is by doing it.
Practice.
Yeah, practice. It is a never-ending process. Self-mastery, you never finish
True.
that process.
Well,
You just
you're always growing. You're changing
yes.
constantly. So it's gonna happen that you're gonna learn new skills. You're gonna
Oh
practice,
yeah.
and
I have a disability now. I have hereditary spastic paraplegia, so it makes it difficult for me to walk. And so a lot of the things that I used to take for granted, I have to relearn and do differently. But
yeah.
I'm still standing. So yeah, it's a never-ending process.
Yeah. And I have rheumatoid arthritis. It's hereditary in the
Hmm.
family.
My mother
Um,
had that.
and when I get up in the morning, I waddle like a duck, and it's just
You
and
too?
till I get going,
Yeah. Yeah.
I I'm stiff and not wanting to move too well. But and I guess becoming older, you learn. Yeah, I'm not young. I can't do what I did, so I have to find new ways of doing it, and uh, that in itself is a wonderful thing. Not always great when you're in pain or having trouble getting around, but you learn to get around in your own way.
Yeah, I think one of the most useful things that an elder can do is make younger people starting out understand that this is a starting point, but things are going to change, and by getting yourself to a certain level of mastery early on, once you get into that part of your life, you'll be able to deal with it because, again, like I said, it's like putting on the black belt. I'm prepared to deal with this. I can do this. Bring it on.
Yep.
Let's go.
Just another challenge to face.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of people that reach for various faiths because they want a crutch. They want an excuse. They want to be able to say, I can't do this, you know. Instead of that, I would rather see you be a survivor. So I went through that, I dealt with it, I came out the other side, and now I'm better than I was, and that ain't happening again. So, I mean, that's part of that
Yeah.
archetype thing that I'm
Yep.
talking about.
Um, when dealing with these product archetypes, when dealing with archetypal energy, you find they have an understanding of their own that's not something that the average person would get. How do you deal with that?
You're you've got to accept that you're going into a different space at times. You're using a different level of your mind. You'll understand what I'm talking about here, because you're a martial artist. You can't go, okay, here comes the right cross. What's the right counter for that? And plan it. You dance. I had a good friend, no longer with us any longer, who I met at Dragon Fest years ago down in Colorado, and we were having this discussion about what's a warrior and what's a soldier, and he had a class to teach, and he went off in one direction, I went off in the other, and I finished my class and had gone back to my campsite, was putting stuff away, and he came bounding across the field. He was having this epiphany, and he came running up, grabbing me by the shoulders, and said, "Soldiers march, warriors dance." I went, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. It's about you um have somebody come at you with a knife, and you go through a drill, and there they are in handcuffs, and now I have to stop and put it on replay to realize what I just did,
Yeah.
because at the time I'm doing it, I'm just dancing.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking consciously. I'm on a different level. So it's partially getting people used to that. This is part the trick with the psychic stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, we're telling people, okay, there's this book and it's full of these letters, and these letters each have a sound, and if I put them together they form words, and words have meanings, and after a while you learn to open to a page and you can read this and to a whole bunch of wonderful insights. But what we tend to do, well, unfortunately, a lot of people in the pagan community tend to go, you have psychic ability, and they show them how to use it without showing them how it works. And so what you do is you have them sit down, close their eyes so they have got absolutely no visual input anymore, and that's 70% of their input,
Yeah.
and say, okay, now just go along with me. Now describe all the things they can hear, describe all the things they can smell, describe all the things they could feel, like the wind in their face and they're sitting down or whatever, and say, okay, now I want you to say the very first thing that comes into your mind. I'm going to ask for a color. I'm going to ask for a shape. Just say the very first thing that comes to your mind. In a paper bag, I've got this object, which they haven't seen. And every single time they describe texture, they describe color, they describe shape, because I've broken it down into the letters and the words. And I'm going for pieces. So once you figure out I can do the pieces, now we keep practicing that. Now we can start putting it together into sentences. And now I can just stop for a second and go, yeah, that's what's happening. That's what I want. You teach people how to do it. You don't just say, okay, just go there.
Yeah.
It's like martial arts. Let's show you how this works. Let's show you what this feels like. That's I'm encouraging people to sort of shift towards that kind of training, because I think that produces a much better result in the end. It doesn't affect anything else that you're doing in your tradition, however you do it. I don't care what your pantheon is or anything else.
Yeah.
What works for you works for you. That's good. But this is really basic stuff, that works for everybody.
Yeah. The more basic it is, the better the outcome you get from it.
Yeah.
I found that in spell work itself, that the more simple the spell, the better it works.
Yeah, yeah. You want to keep things extremely simple and straightforward. It's the KISS principle, um, and you don't really need it that often. If you've got yourself on the right path, if things start
Falling into place.
working the way they're falling into place and working the way they're supposed to, and you don't need to do as much work in that direction.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean you're not doing work on mastery anymore, but I mean it's just sort of like I said, take care of this, everything else takes care of itself. So
true. Uh, Going on to the astronomical society. Uh, your work there. What can you tell us how you got interested in astronomy?
well, I mean, I got the telescope when I was a kid, so I've been interested in it for a long time. But my passion is teaching people that there is a sky out there. I'm very concerned about the misuse of artificial light at night and how it makes it impossible for people in large cities to even realize there is a Milky Way out there. One of the most common things that happens at my observatory is people come up there and go, "What's that glowing cloud in the sky?" And they go, "It's home." And I understand you haven't seen it before. I mean, there was an earthquake in '94 in California where there was a major power outage in the middle of the night. And there were, in the first half hour, about 1,000 calls to 911, people saying, is there a radioactive cloud up there? Did the reactor blow up? What's that cloud in the sky? It's the Milky Way. They hadn't seen it. And it's not just a matter of I can't see stuff in the sky. It's a matter of this is interfering with your circadian rhythms and making you unhealthy. This is making it difficult for people with cataracts to drive at night because you're blinding people by misusing light. This is making thousands of birds die in cities every year, millions of birds
Yeah,
die because they're running out of energy because they can't navigate with the stars because they can't see them. So and it's wasting enormous amounts of money lighting nothing. So I mean, a
true.
lot of what I'm doing is making people understand that we can very simply correct this if we learn how to use night vision that we seem to have forgotten that we have. You can avoid obstacles at any speed that you're capable of achieving with your two legs in starlight with no moon.
True.
Your night vision is actually quite good, but it's also reconnecting people with this guy that used to be a calendar. It used to be a weather prediction device. It used to be a lot of things. It used to be a storyboard. You
Yeah,
stand around the fire and say, and there is this character, and there is that character. I'm founder of the World Asterisms Project for the RASC. We're about 2.5 years in now. We're working with ethno-astronomers all over the world trying to recover the sky cultures of cultures
yeah.
everywhere. And no one's ever tried this before. And no, people in the beginning thought we wouldn't be able to do this. We now have, thousands of asterisms from over 570 cultures, and we're helping many First Nations people recover their skies. So um, there are ancient Celtic skies, for example, if you're interested in that culture, but we've lost a lot of stuff. We've lost a lot of Norse skies, and that's surprising because they were great navigators.
They were beautiful navigators.
So so what do we do with that? We do our best to try and recover these guys, and that's a large part of the work of what we're doing. But there is another aspect to it, and if you look at the Hawaiian culture, for example, in 1972, they created their replica voyaging canoe, Holokea, to learn how to sail the seas like their ancestors did, and they went looking for somebody that still knew how to use the stars in the Polynesian culture to navigate. And his name was Maupialugu Satwalis.
Okay.
He said, "Same stars, same stars. I
Yeah,
can show you how to do this. Doesn't matter what they're called,
yeah,
but if you want to recover the culture that was erased by your version of residential schools in Hawaii,
mm,
look at other cultures in our language group, and you'll find a lot of them because a lot of them are the same.
yeah,
But if you haven't got it, if you've lost it, it's your sky. Rename it. And they have. If you look at the constellation Orion now, their
yeah.
name now is the Cat's Cradle, and that's a modern name. It's this game you do with strings
Yeah.
that children in Polynesian culture do. So I think I've had a couple of people suggest this to me. That it would be really interesting to see what we could do if we went and renamed our sky, our pagan sky, to see what we could do with it.
Yeah.
So I mean, um, it's about helping people, discover and or rediscover their cultures. It's helping people understand different perspectives, how people can look at the same seven stars and one sees a dipper, one sees a wagon, and one sees,
Yeah.
80 other things,
Yeah.
And if you want to solve a problem, that's how you do it. You get as many perspectives in the room as you
Perspective.
can. And this is why diversity is important, because this is how we're going to solve problems in the world, is by working together with these different perspectives, not by trying to say my perspective is the best, because
That's not
that's
always the case.
not going to do
We
it.
each have a part to the puzzle, the whole puzzle,
Yep.
and when we bring ourselves together, that puzzle can be apparent. Usually.
Yeah. So if people are interested in that, you can go on Google World Asterisms Project, enter, and it's on the RASC website, and it's free, and it's huge. And yeah, it's everything from these cultural stories that go back to all these different countries in Europe. You sort of assume they're using the same zodiac that you see in the newspaper in the morning, but they don't. Farmers will have a different view of the sky that fits into their agricultural schedule, and
Yeah.
cattle people a different thing again, and fishermen a different thing. And we're busy recovering those, and it's amazing the stuff that you find. But um, it's it's detective work, but look, I'm still doing detective work, but it's
Yeah.
now people aren't running at me with guns and knives, so it's better. you know
True. You get to look at the sky and say, "What is this beautiful?"
Yeah, I'm a member of Astronomers Without Borders as well, and helping people in other developing countries develop their astronomy programs and help their young people get involved in STEM and STEAM, and figure out how to make that work. So you know, it's very rewarding work, and I have a lot of fun with it.
How does well, you just brought that up. How uh, investigation kind of learning the investigative skills early on kind of inform your astronomical uh, path as it is right now. Um, how how does how do the two compare? Really, how does
Well, there was an interesting interview that was being done with a radio host whose name I don't recall, but he was interviewing Neil deGrasse Tyson. And he said, "What's with all these people who think the world is flat?" I mean, and Tyson said, "It's a failure of education. We used to teach people how to think. We used to teach them Aristotelian logic. We used to teach them detective work, if you want to call it that. Don't just accept what somebody says. Investigate it, look at it, turn it up and down, try stuff, experiment. Like if you disagree with something because you've done science, I'm okay with that, because that's the way science has been developing for years. If you disagree with something because you heard somebody say something that they heard from somebody else on Facebook, no,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
that doesn't work for me. Like you should learn how to investigate things, and figure these things out for yourself. That's a very important skill, and it's not something that's peculiar to people who happen to wear a police uniform. It's something all pagans should do,
true,
I think.
true. Well, there's so many books out there, so many points of view, and because paganism is a deeply personal practice, you need to be critical of what someone else is doing. Uh, like when I do my own investigations, I take 10 books, read the 10 books. I have 10 different perspectives on it, and normally I'll get little bits and pieces from each book and say, okay, this kind of works. And then I go and do a ritual and try and test my thoughts out. And if it works,
Hmm.
great. If it doesn't, then I try to figure out what went wrong. What did I do? Did I miss that, this or that? And yeah, it's investigative work.
There's there's that perspective thing again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You
We keep circling back to perspectives, and maybe that's the main
perspective.
thing we're trying to get across today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, how we see the world is one of the biggest learning things that we have to learn from childhood to adultcy. And a lot of people are stunted in that growth because they don't fully follow through on that. And the pagan community,
Yeah, there's something I should explain about the project, which I haven't already, and that is it's based on something called the two-eyed seeing concept, which was created by Mi'kmaq elder.
okay,
And the idea is you have a perspective, I have a perspective, they overlap. And so we're going to share them to get a better understanding, each of us. So what I am is the person that tells you these are the stars, this is where you find them, this is the history behind them. And yes, there's a story that the Mi'kmaq have for that, but it's their story to tell. And they will tell you this is our story about that star. You have to be very careful with it because there are some First Nations, for example, that are up north and they don't see the night sky all year, so they don't talk about it for part of the year. You do not talk about those stories
when
unless they're in the sky.
yeah,
So like you have to do that. I'm very comfortable going on and on about Celtic skies and that sort of thing. But if you want to know about Egyptian skies, I'm going to point you with someone who
mm,
I work with that does that. So it's about respecting other people's
well,
perspectives
yeah,
as well.
yeah, and being able to sit down in a group and work with individuals like that and learning the perspectives, it it helps you grow. It helps them
Hmm.
grow. And that's why we do this. This podcast is all about creating a network of people and and facilities for learning new ways, uh, and preserving what we have so that
Hmm.
future, like the kids after us, will be able to pick it up and say, "Oh, this is cool. Let's learn this."
It's got to grow.
Yeah,
You can't do this because this is the way it was done 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago was a different world.
true.
It's got to work now.
Yeah,
And it can be based on this stuff. We can be proud of our ancestors. I mean, that's one of the things that makes us stand out as pagans is we remember our ancestors and
yeah.
whatever flavor of paganism or Afro diasporan religion you care to look at. We don't want to make the same mistakes. We want to be inspired by them, but our world now is what we're dealing with, and we have to deal with it in our own way.
We talked about projects. Is there anything you'd like to promote that you're doing right now?
Well, I think I just did.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
World Restorations Project, I think, is really a major
Big.
passion for us right now. But and go out there and look up. If you're not used to it, go up there and look up and watch the phases of the moon. One of the things I ask people is that how many people in the audience have watched the moonrise? And you always have a few people put their hands up. Yeah, I took the time to watch the moonrise. Okay, how many of you watched the moonrise on another planet? They all look at you like, what? You can do that. I do that on a regular basis with my telescope up at the observatory. I'll look at Jupiter and I'll watch the four Galilean moons go in front of it and casting shadows on it, going behind it. And I mean, yeah, you can watch the moonrise and the planets. So, get out there in your community, find somebody that does that, or come up here to our observatory and we'll show you how to do that. It will give you a whole new perspective on how vast the universe is and how small we are and how precious this place is that we have to live on here. All of the astronauts, and there's over 600 have gone up there have all experienced something they call the overview effect, where they look back and they see that thin atmosphere and they come back with a whole new respect for the environment. I can't take you up there. I don't have a spaceship, but I can do the next best thing. I call it the underview effect. I
Mm-hmm.
could show you the scale of things down here, you know? So that's something I'd like to promote people to get involved in. But most of all, I think going right back to what I said at the very beginning, you know, be glorious.
Yep.
Go out there, claim your power, claim your responsibility for it, and be who everything you are. You know,
Yep.
don't let anybody tell you any different. Don't let anyone stand in your way. I had this shirt I was thinking of wearing today that says "Underestimate me." That should be amusing. You know, because yeah, you know, that is the motto of the Knights of my order. It's be glorious. Go out there. You know, be everything you can be.
That's a it's great sentiment and way to look at the world. You just go out, be glorious. Having talked to you today, I'm intrigued in what you're doing, and I want to investigate more. And thank you very much for coming on with me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
No
We'll have to
trouble.
do this again sometime.
Definitely. Kerr Cuhulain is an author, a Wiccan elder, a warrior, an astronomer, and an educator. I thoroughly enjoyed our talk today and have a list of his writings in the show notes for you to look up and read. Thank you again, Kerr Cuhulain, for coming on with us.
This podcast is a member of the Parasortium community, a safe place to explore and create. Find more information at parasortium.com. Research conducted by Sarah Getchie. Interview by AJ Lunn. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and donate if you can. Official merch for the community will be released soon, so stay tuned for updates.